Good evening, everyone. My name is Wayne Miller, and first I would like to thank the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation for inviting me to speak tonight and for their early support of the Center for Recovery Resources, part of TLC Family Resource Center, a peer recovery center in Claremont of which I've had the opportunity to manage since we first opened our doors last July, so we're coming up on 1 year. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and while I'm not here to discuss my work in the recovery community specifically, I'm sharing that aspect of myself with you tonight because it was my lack of community and belonging that directly contributed to my experiences with addiction. I was 10 years old when my family moved from a small city in Connecticut to the rural state of Vermont, where my education in racism and my experiences with being othered began. I learned a lot about myself and the world around me. I learned that if I kept my hair trimmed low, people wouldn't feel compelled to reach out and touch it without my consent. I learned that it was easier and sometimes safer to not call people out for their racist jokes. I learned that I was expected to be the bigger person by ignoring the ignorance and senseless hatred of others. I learned to stop sharing my experiences over time and to assimilate, keep my head down, and eventually my pursuit of community and escape from my reality led to a lot of self-medicating with alcohol and other drugs. My active addiction spanned nearly 10 years until I found community among others recovering from addiction and substance use disorder. This was more than likely the first time in my life when I had felt like I had a group of people who really knew and understood me. However, I recognized that there was still a significant aspect of my identity where peer connection was lacking. But I did my best to practice the recovery principles of acceptance and gratitude in other areas of my life where possible. In August of 2017, an 8-year-old black boy in Claremont was nearly killed in a racist assault by a group of white teenagers. It had been 20 years since I first dealt with similar experiences, and I found myself wondering what had changed for black children during that time. There was a wave of support in the community for the boy and his family, and even more so after the story made national news. But the support was short-lived, and to the best of my knowledge, no charges were filed, and none of the perpetrators involved were given any legal consequences. So I was left wondering, where do people of color in predominantly white communities go for advocacy or support with processing the ongoing trauma of experiencing and witnessing overt and covert racism over and over again? With New Hampshire and Vermont consistently ranking as two of the states with the least racial diversity, it can be challenging for Black and Brown residents to locate affinity spaces or opportunities for peer support. In addition to being faced with the effects of racism and other systemic barriers, people of color living in New England are also prone to rural isolation. It is not uncommon for a person of color to be the only or one of the only non-white members of their community, school, or place of worship. In an effort to combat the significant impacts of that isolation and geographical segregation, I founded Living Proof Mentoring, which officially launched this past November, a program that matches Black mentors with Black youth. The mission is to support Black youth and their families through advocacy, community building, and mentorship. Building from the evidence-based impacts of mentorship, Living Proof provides opportunities for Black and Brown youth to experience, sometimes for the first time, affinity spaces where they can benefit from racial mirroring and positive representation. As mentors, we are leaders in our communities, educators, parents, activists, carpenters, doctors, writers, creators. We are living proof to Black and Brown youth that people who look like them can and do achieve things. We do achieve success. We are proof that there is no stereotype or mold that we must fit into, that we exist in all sizes, shapes, and shades. We aim to foster environments where children can grow, create, learn, play, explore, teach, and be in community with other Black children, adults, and families. I am grateful to have the opportunity to work with an amazing kid. Although he lives almost 2 hours away from me, his mother and I worked diligently to keep the lines of communication open and do our best to coordinate our respective schedules as often as we are able. During our last meetup together, my mentee shared about his excitement for the upcoming summer and also educated me in the thrilling sport known as cycle ball, which is essentially soccer on bikes. And while I would love to show you some footage of my attempt at mastering cycle ball, I have dignity somewhat, so let's just imagine that it would not be pretty. I am living proof that the power of healing through peer-to-peer support is without parallel. I fully intend to celebrate my 7th year of recovery this September, an accomplishment that could not have been achieved without the network of support and community that I have had, and without my recovery, I would not have my amazing partner, our 2 beautiful children, my career, my drive, my passions, nor would I have had the opportunity to be with you tonight. Engaging in peer recovery and fellowship allowed me to finally find community, to have a place where I could go and know that I would be welcomed and valued, not in spite of my experiences, but because of them. It allowed me the freedom to speak openly about the most important aspects of my life and myself without the need to justify my statements or explain my truths to my fellow members, because we all spoke the same language and had been through our own versions of each other's stories. And I hope to be able to deliver that same level of authenticity and community through Living Proof mentoring. Thank you.